We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. India counters Trump's tariff threat, terms US and EU criticism unjustified and unreasonable, says will take all necessary steps to safeguard its interest and economy. Philippines President Marcos to meet Prime Minister Modi on his first state visit to India. Key agreements to be exchanged. Six years of Article 370 abrogation, a historic turning point in India's constitutional and political journey. Investments, infra upgrades, tourist footfall hike mark changes in Jammu Kashmir. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu vows to update Gaza conflict strategy ahead of key UNSC meeting, while airdrop humanitarian assistance continues to reach. Brazil's former President Bolsonaro put under house arrest after defying court's order in a move that could escalate tensions with the administration of US President Donald Trump. And on to the top story this hour. The Indian government has strongly hit back at the US after Donald Trump threatened to substantially raise tariffs on goods from India over its purchase of Russian oil. In a statement issued by the Ministry of External Affairs, the government stated it has been targeted by the United States and EU over its purchase of Russian oil. It said that India began importing from Russia because traditional supplies were diverted to Europe after the outbreak of the conflict. The United States at that time actively encouraged such imports by India for strengthening global energy market stability. The government added that India's imports are meant to ensure predictable and affordable energy costs to the Indian consumer. They are a necessity compelled by global market situation. However, it is revealing that the very nations criticizing India are themselves indulging in trade with Russia. Unlike our case, such trade is not even a vital national compulsion. The ministry put forth figures of EU's oil trade with Russia, saying in 2024 they had a bilateral trade of euro 67.5 billion in goods with Russia. In addition, it had trade in services estimated at 17.2 billion euros in 2023. This is significantly more than India's total trade with Russia that year or subsequently. European imports of LNG in 2024, in fact, reached a record of 16.5 million tons, surpassing the last record of 15.21 billion tons in 2022. The government also mentioned that Europe-Russia trade includes not just energy, but also fertilizers, mining, products, chemicals, iron and steel, and machinery and transport equipment. Talking about the US, MEA said that America continues to import from Russia uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry, palladium for its EV industry, fertilizers, as well as chemicals. Thus, the Indian government categorically stated that in this background, the targeting of India is unjustified and unreasonable. It also clearly stated that, like any major economy, India will take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interest and economic security. And for more on this, we have Shbindu Gokhale joining us. Well, Shbindu, given the Indian government's assertion that both the EU and the European Union, the US and the European Union continue significant trade with Russia and terms the criticism by them as unjustified and unreasonable, where do you see all this moving into?
Lipakshi, good morning. Well, to begin with, it is a strong response that India has given to the West, particularly to the United States, as far as the tariff threats are concerned. It gives a logical and a rational explanation and argument to its a closer engagement as far as its ties with Russia and especially the energy trade with Russia is concerned. Some of the points that you enumerated that the Ministry of External Affairs has also mentioned that at a time when global energy supplies were diverted to Europe to be able to support its fight, its side in the Ukraine conflict. That was the time when India also had to ensure energy security for its 1.4 billion population, which is about 17% of the global population. By 2030, Indian economy is projected to be about 10% of the global GDP. So in all those sense, in both in terms of national interest, is at the same time in the interest of global economy, the steps that India took to secure its energy supplies have to be seen in that logical context. And that is the argument that India has clearly made. It is the first very clear response that India has made to the almost punitive tariffs and penalty that America has imposed as far as trade with India is concerned. EU and NATO had earlier, we remember, taken a similar stance. And both these parts are putting the responsibility, as it were, on the India-Russia ties as far as the continuation of the Ukraine war is concerned, which is also hypocritical in many sense. And the arguments are also provided in the External Affairs Ministry statement, which says that the countries that are actually dissuading India from engaging in energy trade, in trade with Russia, are themselves, in fact, importing and trading with Russia in a significant manner. If you look at Europe in particular, Russia has been Europe's key energy supplier till 2021. About 90% of the oil and 40% of the natural gas in Europe would come from Russia. Then the conflict broke out. So it's not as if Europe stopped its energy supplies from Russia completely, although there are different kinds of embargoes and sanctions that have been put on Russia. Some 67.5 billion worth of goods and around similar estimates of services were imported by Europe from Russia, which in total is more than the kind of trade that India has with Russia. So some of the key arguments here where India is at once exposing the hypocrisy of the West, if I were to put it like that, and also defending its own national interest of securing its energy supplies.
Right, Shbindu, if you talk about how does the Indian government's strong pushback against the US narrative reflect a broader shift in India's policy from, say, strategic balancing to assertive economic sovereignty?
Lipakshi, more than a shift, we have to see the manner in which India is presenting the bigger picture. India continues to be an important trading partner, wants to engage with the world. It is, in fact, in the process of negotiating a trade deal with the European Union. It has already achieved a big milestone as far as agreement with United Kingdom is concerned. With America, it's an important economic and strategic partner. India appreciates and respects those ties. At the same time, in this context, we see it is presenting a bigger picture to argue why it does what it does. The energy security for 1.4 billion people of its people is a significant part of its national interest, and that is where India is not going to compromise. It has also given clear arguments about how the West actually needs to put its own house in order, whether it is deliberating over the ceasefire in the Ukraine conflict is concerned. India, for its own part, as far as this conflict is concerned, has made its point amply clear in a number of times. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, had directly on many occasions spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying that this is not an era of conflict and India is on the side of peace. It is not on the side of either Russia or Ukraine in that sense in this conflict. So India has made its position amply clear. It is the West which will have to see and diagnose the real problem in this conflict, whether it is about NATO's unilateral expansion or it is about NATO's own understanding within itself. We've seen fissures growing within the NATO, within the European Union as far as its engagement with the US are concerned. So in that sense, India doing two things at once, showing the mirror to the West and at the same time defending its own national interests.
All right, Shbindu, thank you so much for all those details. And moving on, in a significant diplomatic development, Philippines President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has begun his first state visit to India, describing the country as a valued friend. On his 5-day visit, President Marcos scheduled to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the national capital, both the leaders to hold bilateral talks. Later in the day, the visiting minister will also meet his Indian counterpart, Draupadi Murmu. On his arrival on Monday, President Marcos met External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. The leaders exchanged their views on key topics. They asserted that this visit will significantly deepen our bilateral partnership. Diplomatic relations between India and the Philippines were established in November 1949. Both countries have since developed a strong partnership across a wide spectrum of areas, including trade and investment, defense and security, maritime cooperation, agriculture, healthcare, pharmaceuticals and digital technologies. The two countries also engage closely at regional level, including through India's comprehensive strategic partnership with ASEAN. While India's relations with the Philippines are an integral pillar of our Act East policy vision, Mahasagar, and our vision of the Indo-Pacific, the forthcoming state visit of President Marcos coincides with the 75th anniversary of India-Philippines diplomatic relations. Well, the visit is an opportunity for both the leaders to set the path for future bilateral cooperation and to engage on regional and international issues of mutual interest. And moving on, as the monsoon session of Indian Parliament continues, reports of the department-related Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance to be presented in the upper house of the Parliament today. Also reports of the department-related Parliamentary Standing Committee on Energy, the House to take up the Carriage of Goods by Sea Bill 2025, bill to provide for the responsibilities, liabilities, rights and immunities attached to carriers with respect to the carriage of goods by sea. The lower house of the Parliament, Lok Sabha, to take up the readjustment of representation of scheduled tribes and assembly constituencies of the State of Goa Bill 2024. The Merchant Shipping Bill 2024 will also be tabled for consideration and passing. The bill to consolidate and amend the law relating to merchant shipping to ensure compliance with India's obligation under the maritime treaties. And the National Democratic Alliance Parliamentary Party meet is scheduled to take place on Tuesday at the Parliament Library building. The meeting will be attended by NDA members from the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have witnessed repeated adjournments over the opposition's insistence on a demand for discussion on the SIR in poll-bound Bihar. Amid opposition protest, Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju said that following an all-party meeting, time had been allotted in the back meeting to discuss the National Sports Bill and the Anti-Doping Bill. He urged members not to waste the time of the House and condemned their stance. And for more on the Parliament, we have Dibyendu Mondal joining us. Well, Dibyendu, what all is scheduled for today in the Parliament, given the opposition's continued disruptions over the SIR issue in Bihar?
Well, good morning, Lipakshi. The Parliament has been trying to function over the last 2 weeks, ever since the Operation Sindur's debate concluded in Parliament. There has been little to no business in both the houses of Parliament, given the fact that there has been continuous protest from the opposition side on this particular contentious issue of the SIR, which is the Special Intensive Review of Electoral Rolls in Bihar. So therefore, this issue is likely to continue in both the houses of Parliament. And also, interestingly, Lipakshi, there has been a meeting called by the Prime Minister and, the senior leaders of the BJP, of all the NDA MPs in Parliament building today morning. The meeting is expected to begin at 9:30 a.m. This morning. And, several strategies would be chalked out, given the fact that Bihar is going to elections in just a couple of months away from now. The very crucial vice presidential election, which is slated to take place on the 9th of September, will be discussed in this NDA meeting. Remember, the BJP will try to garner the support of as much MPs as possible, not just from the NDA fold, but also from outside for its vice presidential candidate. So therefore, this meeting, which will be chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as well as the BJP President JP Nadda, Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, all of these senior members of the BJP are expected to be present in that NDA MP meeting, which is expected to start at 9:30 a.m. this morning. Also to the fact that, there could be strategies that could be discussed on how to end this deadlock in both the houses of parliament, where the opposition is holding the house to ransom, given the fact that they have been continuously protesting on both the floor of the house. So therefore, as the parliament reconvenes at 11 a.m., it will be interesting to see if the deadlock can come to an end, and normal businesses in both the houses can begin from today. Lipakshi.
All right. Thank you so much, Dibyendu, for all that information. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US strikes deal with Rwanda to deport migrants amid Trump's aggressive immigration push. Thailand and Cambodia begin preliminary talks in Malaysia to finalize border ceasefire framework. And 6 killed in El Teniente mine collapse. President Boric orders probe and mourning. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on to some West Asian updates. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will convene his security cabinet on Tuesday to decide on Israel's next steps in Gaza following the collapse of indirect ceasefire talks with Hamas. It comes a day before a UN Security Council meeting on the fate of hostages still held in the Palestinian territory. Last Saturday, during a visit to the country, U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff had said he was working with the Israeli government on a plan that would effectively end the conflict in Gaza. But Israeli soldiers have also floated ideas, including expanding the military offensive in Gaza and annexing parts of the shattered enclave. Well, the failed ceasefire talks in Doha had aimed to clinch agreements on a U.S.-backed proposal for a 60-day truce during which aid would be flown into Gaza, and half of the hostages Hamas is holding would be freed in exchange for Palestinian prisoners jailed in Israel. The envoy's visit was seen in Israel as very significant. But later on Sunday, the Israeli official signaled that pursuit of a deal would be pointless, threatening more force. Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar suggested on Monday that the gaps were still too wide to bridge. Also, Canada delivered humanitarian assistance through airdrops to Gaza, again accusing Israel of violating international law. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reported that it was Canadian Armed Forces' first humanitarian airdrop over Gaza using their own aircraft. The Israeli military said 120 food aid packages for Gaza's residents were airdropped by 6 countries, including Canada. The other 5 were Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Germany and Belgium. Canada said last week it plans to recognize the state of Palestine at a meeting of the United Nations in September, ramping up pressure on Israel as starvation spreads in Gaza. While Canada also said on Monday that Israeli restrictions have posed challenges for humanitarian agencies. And Finland's President Alexander Stub held a phone call with U.S. President Donald Trump to discuss Russia-Ukraine conflict and supporting efforts for an immediate ceasefire on Monday. Trump has threatened to impose new sanctions on Russia and buyers of its oil, including India and China, unless President Vladimir Putin agrees to end the conflict by Friday. Both leaders also discussed ongoing talks about icebreakers. Early in June, Trump said that the U.S. is negotiating to buy 15 icebreakers from Finland as part of his broader plan to acquire up to 40 icebreakers to strengthen Arctic security and support resource development and logistics. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker said that he expects more nations to fund U.S. arms for Ukraine following the Netherlands' announcement of 500 million euros to the scheme.
You're going to see a series of announcements in the coming weeks. When we announced this facility that allowed our NATO allies to buy U.S. equipment and provide that to Ukraine for their defense, we had a lot of our allies raise their hand and line up. A lot of them are coming together in groups to pool their money and their resources together to provide these armaments and munitions. And so, it's the whole purpose of NATO.
Well, Brazil's Supreme Court on Monday issued a house arrest order for former President Jair Bolsonaro, who is standing trial for allegedly plotting a coup. Justice Alexandre de Moraes said in his decision that the right-wing firebrand did not comply with judicial restraining orders imposed on him last month. Moraes also banned Bolsonaro from receiving visits, with exceptions for lawyers and people authorized by the court and use of a cell phone either directly or through third parties. The restrictions on Bolsonaro were imposed over allegations that he courted the interference of Trump, who recently tied steep new tariffs on Brazilian goods. The former Brazilian leader is facing charges that he conspired with dozens of his allies to overturn his 2022 electoral loss. Bolsonaro's press representative confirmed the house arrest order and restrictions on using a cell phone. And the United States on a Monday condemned a decision by Brazil's Supreme Court to put former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro under house arrest. The department's Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs said in a post on X, and I quote, "Putting even more restrictions on Jair Bolsonaro's ability to defend himself in public is not a public service. Let Bolsonaro speak," unquote. And the United States and Rwanda have agreed for the African country to accept up to 250 migrants deported from the U.S. as President Donald Trump's administration takes a hardline approach towards immigration. Well, under the agreement, Rwanda has the ability to approve each individual proposed for resettlement. Those approved will be provided with workforce training, healthcare and accommodation support to jumpstart their lives in Rwanda, giving them the opportunity to contribute to one of the fastest growing economies in the world over the last decade. President Donald Trump aims to deport millions of immigrants in the U.S. illegally, and his administration has sought to ramp up removals to third countries, including sending convicted criminals to South Sudan and Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. Rwanda has in recent years positioned itself as a destination country for migrants that Western countries would like to remove, despite concerns by right groups that Kigali does not respect basic human rights. And preliminary talks between Thailand and Cambodia, defense officials started on Monday in Malaysia ahead of a key ministerial-level meeting on Thursday. The ceasefire, which came after 5 days of border clashes between Cambodia and Thailand, was reached at a meeting in Malaysia last Monday, with help from the United States and China also observing. Malaysian Armed Forces Chief General Mohammad Nizam Zafar said both parties are now in the final stages of discussion over a proposed terms of reference and the formation of an interim defense attaché monitoring force, which would precede the establishment of a formal ASEAN monitoring team. Well, the secretariat-level meeting hosted at Wisma Perwira by the Malaysian Armed Forces brings together 54 representatives from both countries in an effort to lay the groundwork for lasting stability after weeks of deadly border clashes. And Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar will be visiting Bangladesh later this month, reacting on which Bangladesh Foreign Affairs Advisor Tawhid Hussain said all outstanding bilateral issues, including those rooted in the events of 1971, will be on the discussion table. He told reporters in Dhaka when asked whether Bangladesh would raise the long pending matters of a public apology from Pakistan and financial compensation related to the 1971 Liberation War. Dar is scheduled to arrive in Dhaka on August 23rd on a bilateral visit aimed at enhancing diplomatic coordination. He will hold official talks with advisor Tawhid Hussain on August 24th alongside other engagements. Bangladesh formally raised the issues of Pakistan's long overdue apology and unsettled financial liabilities during Foreign Secretary level consultations held in Dhaka on April 17th. And in Bangladesh, the July declaration will be presented before the nation today at a public gathering in Dhaka, expected to be attended by Chief Advisor of the Interim Government of Bangladesh, Professor Muhammad Yunus. The July declaration is an official declaration of the July mass uprising of 2024 in Bangladesh. The declaration, reportedly prepared under strict confidentiality, outlines 26 points addressing political, constitutional, and governance issues. Disagreements persist among political parties regarding the contents of the declaration, as well as whether it should be incorporated into the Constitution. A preliminary draft of the charter was released on 28th of July 2025, following a series of consultations involving 30 political parties. And moving on, a fire beneath a commuter train at Newport Station in Jersey City disrupted rush hour services along several lines in New Jersey on Monday. Video shot by commuters showed people inside a smoke-filled train car rushing towards the exit as a fire broke out beneath the train. Several individuals were treated on site for smoke inhalation. The incident led to significant delays, with multiple path lines between New Jersey and New York and New Jersey temporarily suspended. The cause of the fire is currently under investigation. And Vivek Ramaswamy, who ran for President of the United States, now seeks to become Governor of Ohio. He held a town hall on a Monday focused on a fight that broke out in the streets of Cincinnati on July 26th. The gathering was convened by Ramaswamy to discuss public safety following the brawl, which injured 6 people and went viral on social media. The biotech entrepreneur told attendees he was asking for their vote because we need leaders who are going to act with a spine. After the video of the fight circulated widely online, Governor Mike DeWine ordered the Ohio State Highway Patrol to provide additional manpower to support the Cincinnati Police Department. The gubernatorial election in Ohio is scheduled for November 3rd, 2026. And in Chile, family members and friends of the miners who lost their lives in the recent El Teniate mine collapse gathered to bid farewell to the victims in a memorial ceremony on Monday. All 5 workers at the copper mine who were trapped in a collapse last week have been found dead. The total death toll stood at 6, including 1 person who died at the time of the incident. The collapse was triggered by one of the largest tremors ever recorded at El Teniate, with the impact of a 4.2 magnitude quake. It is still unclear if the cause was a natural quake in the highly seismic country or mining activity. While Chilean President Gabriel Boric vowed justice for the miners and declared 3 days of mourning, he stated that Chile has completed the rescue phase and is now focusing on investigating the cause of the incident. Emphasizing the need for full transparency and accountability, Codelco's chairman announced an international audit to ensure transparency and identify the cause and responsibility for the incident. And still to come on DD India News Now. A massive wildfire devastates swaths of land in California. Over 190 countries try to iron out differences on the first ever global plastics treaty. And Moldova joins International Solar Alliance, becomes 107th member in push for clean energy cooperation.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures, and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative. From current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order, DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India, India's voice to the world.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. India counters Trump's tariffs threat, terms US and EU criticism unjustified and unreasonable, says will take all necessary steps to safeguard its interest and economy. Philippines President Marcos to meet Prime Minister Modi on his first state visit to India, key agreements to be exchanged. Six years of Article 370 abrogation, a historic turning point in India's constitutional and political journey. Investments, infra upgrades, tourist footfall hike, marked changes in Jammu Kashmir. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu vows to update Gaza conflict strategy ahead of key UNSC meeting, while airdrop humanitarian assistance continues to reach. Brazil's former president Bolsonaro put under house arrest after defying court's order in a move that could escalate tensions with the administration of US President Donald Trump. And moving on, August 5th marks a historic turning point in India's constitutional and political journey. On this day in 2019, the Government of India revoked Article 370, ending the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, a move hailed by many as a step towards integration, equality and development. 5 years on, we look back at the constitutional transformation, the intense parliamentary debate and the positive changes on the ground. As a special report.
Article 370 was introduced as a temporary provision in 1949, drafted by N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar. It granted special status to Jammu and Kashmir, allowing the state to have its own constitution, its own flag, and considerable autonomy, except in matters of defense, foreign affairs, and communication. This provision was based on the instrument of accession signed in 1947 by Maharaja Hari Singh after Pakistan-backed forces invaded the region. Over the decades, Article 370 created a unique constitutional setup, one that remained contentious. On August 5th, 2019, a decisive move was made, the government invoking the powers of the president under Article 371 issued a presidential order redefining the term Constituent Assembly to mean the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. With the state under president's rule at the time, Parliament assumed legislative powers and passed concurrent resolutions in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, effectively abrogating Article 370 and rendering Article 35A inoperative.
अनुच्छेद 370 के खंड 3 द्वारा प्रदत्त शक्तियों का प्रयोग करते हुए राष्ट्रपति संसद की सिफारिश पर यह घोषणा करते हैं कि यह दिनांक जिस दिन भारत के राष्ट्रपति द्वारा इस घोषणा पर हस्ताक्षर किए जाएंगे और इसे सरकारी गैजेट में प्रकाशित किया जाएगा, उस दिन से अनुच्छेद 370 के सभी खंड लागू नहीं होंगे, सिवाय खंड 1 के नामक तदनुसार पढ़ा जाएगा.
It wasn't just a constitutional maneuver, it was a moment of high drama and passionate debate in the parliament. In the Lok Sabha, the resolution to revoke Article 370 was passed with 351 votes in favour and 72 against, with one abstention. The Jammu and Kashmir Reorganisation Bill 2019 was also cleared, paving the way to bifurcate the state into two union territories, Jammu and Kashmir with a legislature and Ladakh without one. A day earlier, Rajya Sabha had also passed a resolution marking an unprecedented constitutional development. In December 2023, the Supreme Court upheld the abrogation in a unanimous verdict, observing that Article 370 was always meant to be temporary. The court also stated that Jammu and Kashmir had no internal sovereignty separate from India, and the Indian constitution now fully applies to the region.
ये 370 से जम्मू कश्मीर का और विशेषकर घाटी के युवाओं का भला नहीं हुआ है। आतंकवाद के रास्ते पर जो युवा गए सबको, मैं तो जिनके मन में अलगाववाद की भी भावना है या 370 के लिए भी जो लोग सोचते हैं कि हमारा कुछ छिन गया, मैं सबको विनम्र भाव से कहना चाहता हूं ये सदन का उपयोग कर कि आप हिसाब किताब तो करिए कि आपको 370 से क्या मिला। रोटी मिली, शिक्षा मिली, सुख सुविधा रोजगारी मिली, आरोग्य मिला, क्या मिला 370 से? क्यों झुनझुना पकड़े हुए हो? 370 है, वो जाने से धीरे धीरे हम घाटी के सभी लोगों को अपने नजदीक ला पाएंगे। उनके मन के अंदर एक नई आशा, नया उमंग, वहां पर जो विकास होगा।
Since the abrogation, the region has witnessed significant decline in terror incidents, stone pelting and separatist violence. The improved national security and increased presence of central laws, the law and order situation has seen marked improvement. For the first time, several central welfare schemes became accessible to people of Jammu and Kashmir, especially to women, scheduled caste, and other marginalized communities. Discriminatory local laws were repealed, bringing gender justice and social equity in line with the rest of India. Tourism, which is the backbone of the region's economy, has seen a sharp rise. New industrial schemes like Prime Minister's Development Package and the Industrial Development Scheme have attracted investments and created job opportunities for the local youth. As Jammu and Kashmir embarks on a new journey within the constitutional framework of India, the abrogation of Article 370 remains a watershed moment. A move once called bold and controversial is now credited by many for unlocking peace, prosperity, and parity for the region. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now let us listen to some of the reactions we are getting from the Union Territory.
How has Jammu and Kashmir changed for student community in past 6 years? What are the new things you are seeing?
Sir, definitely things are changing drastically. We can see the new opportunities are there. People are exploring new things and they're getting benefited out of the new schemes and new courses are being launched. I guess the main hurdles, main obstacles which were in the path of their success, they are now getting out and people are coming out and they are coming out, even they are leaving the conventional jobs, they are coming up with the new things because new opportunities are available for them. Now, alhamdulillah, things are changing. We are happy and we wish a positive change, and definitely a positive change is coming out, and the Kashmir is the eyewitness of that positive change.
What is your take on how new opportunities have come in the way of students of Kashmir?
If someone will say there is no change, I think he is in dreams. Change is there, and there is no lockdown. There are no protests. There are no calendars, and alhamdulillah, we are enjoying.
I'm a local of Kashmir, and what I have seen in the past few years that Kashmir is emerging as a new global place. It's having a place in the national, when we see overall Kashmir has developed in the past few years. Kashmir is not what it used to be. Everything is getting developed, whether it's the roads, whether it's the tourism, every aspect is enhancing. And I feel very proud to be a Kashmiri because every aspect in Kashmir is enhancing and it's getting better day by day.
Well, after being neglected for decades, the families of terror victims in Kashmir will finally receive the justice, recognition and support they deserve after years of suffering in silence. In a significant outreach move, Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha will hand over appointment letters to 250 terror victim families in Srinagar. These families from across North, Central and South Kashmir are those whose loved ones were brutally killed by various terrorist organizations operating in the valley. Since the rise of terrorism 3 decades ago, these families have been enduring tremendous hardships, losing their family members in violent acts carried out by organizations such as Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Taiba and other terrorist outfits. These families, despite suffering immense personal loss, were often ostracized, with society failing to acknowledge their pain. Notably, on the 13th of July, the Lieutenant Governor had handed over appointment letter to 40 next of kins of terror victims at Baramulla, and 80 families received justice on 28th of July at an event in Jammu. And staying with Jammu and Kashmir, the encounter in the Akhal forest area of Devsar in Kulgam district entered its 5th day on Tuesday, with intermittent firing and explosives continuing. Director General of Police and senior commanders from the Army's 15 corps are closely monitoring the operation. The operation was launched on Friday evening after security forces received credible intelligence inputs about the presence of terrorists hiding in the dense Akhal forest. As the troops moved into cordon of the area, they came under fire, triggering a prolonged gun battle, according to officials. So far, 3 terrorists have been killed and 3 soldiers injured, and officials said the firing is still going on and terrorists appear to be firing from multiple directions. The Indian Army last night kept the terrorists engaged in intense gunfights to prevent them from escaping in the dark. This is one of the longest anti-terrorist operations and is likely to take more time. And moving on to some update from Manipur now, where a series of counter-insurgency operations were carried out from 29th of July to 4th of August by the Indian Army and Assam Rifles units in close coordination with Manipur police and other agencies. During the 7-day operation, security forces arrested 15 active insurgent cadres and recovered 69 weapons and 16 IEDs, both in the strife-torn states, hills and the valleys. Grenades, ammunition, radio sets and other warlike stores were also recovered during multiple operations in forested and high-risk areas. These coordinated actions underscore the firm resolve of the security forces to maintain peace and stability in the region while preventing the resurgence of insurgent activities. And in a significant step towards self-reliant India and defense technology, the Chief of Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, inaugurated Agni Shodh, the Indian Army Research Cell at IIT Madras. The initiative aims to upskill military personnel in emerging fields such as additive manufacturing, cybersecurity, quantum computing, wireless communication and unmanned systems, fostering a tech-enabled force. On the occasion, the COAS addressed the faculty and students in Operation Sindoor, highlighting it as a calibrated and intelligence-led operation reflecting a doctrinal shift. He underlined the role of indigenous technology and precision military action in reinforcing India's proactive security posture. He also lauded the IIT faculty for their contribution to nation building through academic excellence. And the last rites of Jharkan Muktima founder and former Chief Minister Shibu Soren will be performed today in his native village Nimra near Barka Nasla in Bokaro district. The 81-year-old tribal leader and veteran politician breathed his last on Monday morning at Sri Gangaram Hospital in New Delhi after a prolonged illness related to kidney complications. A large number of supporters, political workers and tribal community members are also expected to gather to bid farewell to the Dishomgiru, a title commonly used to refer to Soren, acknowledging his leadership among the tribal communities. And some weather-related updates now. First up from India's hill state of Uttarakhand, where heavy rainfall is expected today, with Met Department issuing orange alert for 7 districts of the state. All schools will remain closed on Tuesday in Dehradun, Pauri, Tehri, Nainital, Champawat, Udham Singh Nagar and Bageshwar districts. This applies to all educational institutions from class 1 to 12th, including Anganwadi centers. In view of the heavy rain warning, holiday orders have been issued in these 8 districts of the state. District administrations have been put on high alert, with disaster response teams and local authorities monitoring the situation closely. Well, continuous heavy rainfall in another hilly state of Himachal Pradesh is also expected today, with several districts on high alert as rivers and streams across the state swell dangerously. And for the current weather situation, we are joined in by Muskan Chaudhary. Well, Muskan, tell us about the problems being faced by the locals and tourists, especially if you talk about Shimla, and how prepared are the authorities to handle the escalating risk of flash floods, landslides, especially as there has been a forecast of more intense rainfall in the coming days.
Lepakshi state is experiencing rainfall since last night, and this monsoon season has created a havoc across the state and crippling the daily life. And talking about the current weather situation, the meteorological department has issued an orange alert of heavy rainfall in 3 districts for today, that is Una, Bilaspur and Kangra. And talking about the flood-like situation, the rivers and the stream across the state are currently overflowed, and the authority is advising people not to go near the water bodies, and the dams are overflowed and the water is being released from the dams continuously. Yesterday also the water was released from the Pando Dam, and today also from Mandi, the Coal Dam, in Coal Dam the water is being released right now. So you can see the situation across the state is terrible. This monsoon season has taken more than 170 lives so far, and administration is advising people to follow the guidelines they are providing and to keep a check on a real-time weather condition and the road condition. And if you're traveling on national highways, they have advised people to stay alert and vigilant. If I'm talking about national highway, the Mandi Manali National Highway is still closed in some stretches. The Mandi Pathankot road is still closed, and across the state more than 200 roads are still closed due to the landslide and the cloudburst situation.
All right, Muskan, thank you so much for all those details from Shimla. And moving on to California now, where a massive wildfire on Monday was threatening hundreds of homes in central part after injuring at least 3 people as it tore through Los Padres National Forest. Authorities said the fire is located within the Los Padres National Forest, which spans parts of Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties, while local media said more than 1,000 firefighters were battling the blaze from the ground and air. According to the Santa Barbara County Fire Department, the fire is threatening about 360 homes, with evacuation orders in place for south areas south of Highway 166. The National Weather Service warned that Southern California will face elevated fire danger amid gusty winds in the coming week. And over 190 countries will try to break an impasse and reach an agreement over the next fortnight on the first ever global plastics treaty that will create a legally binding framework to end plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. This will be the second installment of the 5th meeting of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee of the United Nations, which will take place in Geneva, Switzerland. Negotiations will pick up from the previous meeting in Busan, South Korea, last December, where talks had collapsed over critical and unresolved issues. Plastic pollution has reached even the most remote corners of the planet today. 460 million tons of plastic are produced annually, of which only 9% is recycled, while the rest leaks into the environment. And Moldova has become the 107th member of the International Solar Alliance. The instrument of ratification was handed over during the meeting of the ambassador of Moldova to India, Anna Taman, in New Delhi on Monday. The International Solar Alliance is a global initiative launched in 2015 by India and France at COP21 in Paris. It has 124 members and signatory countries. The alliance works with governments to improve energy access and security worldwide and promote social power as a sustainable transition to a clean energy future. ISA's mission is to unlock investments in solar energy while reducing the cost of technology and financing it. On 6th of December 2017, 15 countries signed and ratified the ISA Framework Agreement, making ISA the first international intergovernmental organization headquartered in India. You're watching DD India News. Our time now for some sports news. Mohammad Siraj picked up 5 wickets to help India to a famous 6-run win at the Oval on Monday. In addition to Siraj, Prasidh Krishna chipped in with 4 wickets. With the result, India levelled the series 2-2. Chasing 374 runs, England were in a bit of a pickle at 106 for 3. However, Harry Brook and Joe Root launched the counter-attack to push India on the back foot. However, late last evening, as the conditions turned conducive to bowling, India managed to pick 3 wickets, and today morning, in a nerve-wracking passage, India held their nerve. India took the last 4 wickets in under an hour to bowl England out for 367. Siraj was India's hero, dismissing Jamie Smith and Jamie Overton before bowling Gus Atkinson to complete a 5-wicket haul. After Prasidh Krishna had bowled Josh Tung for naught, Chris Woakes walked out to bat wearing a sling to protect his dislocated shoulder with 17 runs still needed. Atkinson hit Siraj for 6 to give England brief hope and cleverly protected Woakes from the strike, but Siraj produced another brilliant yorker to earn India their narrowest ever Test win. Well, on this very day, 5 years ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone for the construction of the Ram Temple at Ram Janambhoomi in Ayodhya. Let's take a look at this historic event.
August 5th, 2020, Ayodhya, Uttar Pradesh. A historic date. On this day, 5 years ago, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone for the construction of the grand Ram Temple. This marked the auspicious beginning of the construction of the magnificent temple for Ram Lalla.
सदियों का इंतजार आज समाप्त हो रहा है। राम मंदिर के लिए कई सदियों तक कई पीढ़ियों ने अखंड अविरत एक निष्ठ प्रयास किया है। आज का ये दिन उसी तप, त्याग और संकल्प का प्रतीक है।
This is the same birthplace that lives on in Hindu beliefs, scriptures and legends. It is the very land where Lord Sri Ram was born in the Treta Yuga, in the home of Emperor Dashrath and Queen Kaushalya, in the city of Ayodhya, situated on the banks of the Saryu River. From the Treta Yuga to the 16th century, it remained a center of faith for devotees of Lord Ram. But in 1528 AD, Mughal Emperor Babur had a mosque built on the birthplace by demolishing the temple. Devotees continued to hold their unwavering faith in Lord Ram, but were deprived of the right to worship at his birthplace.
भगवान राम की अद्भुत शक्ति देखिए। इमारतें नष्ट हो गई, क्या कुछ नहीं हुआ? अस्तित्व मिटाने का हर कोई प्रयास हुआ, बहुत हुआ, लेकिन राम आज भी हमारे मन में बसे हैं, हमारी संस्कृति के आधार है। श्री राम भारत की मर्यादा है। श्री राम मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम है।
A period of struggle began. Centuries of foreign rule passed. The legal battle began in 1949. After decades, on November 9, 2019, a 5-judge constitutional bench of the Supreme Court awarded the land ownership of the birthplace to the Hindus. The 500-year-old struggle came to an end. And August 5th, 2020 was etched in history as the day the foundation stone was laid by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The temple was inaugurated on January 22nd, 2024. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.